This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to the Human-Animal Connection Show, where we believe we can communicate with all animals. Join us as we explore the 33 principles and healing methods of the human-animal connection. As animal lovers, we know that you share our commitment to making the world a kinder place for all creatures. Together, let's embrace the transformative healing power of the human-animal connection.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Human-Animal Connection podcast. I'm your host, Genie Joseph, and I have a most delightful guest. I have Penelope Smith, and she is the author of Animal Talk and Animal Spirit. And these books are like the Bibles of animal communication. They have endured. Many books come and go. These books are still on our shelves and still highlighted, underlined, and worshipped. Well, maybe worship's too strong a word, but revered. Yeah, so Penelope Smith has been doing telepathic animal communication since the 1970s, and she's got a lot to say all about how animals really feel, how they want us to understand them, and how we can do better by them. So Penelope, thank you so much for being on the show today.
You're very welcome. Nice to be here. Thank you.
And I'm really enjoying being in your class, your online class on animal communication, advanced animal whispering, I think. Is that what it's called? I forgot now. Yeah. Okay. So I just have a question for you. I know sometimes people, even people who work under the banner of spiritual teachers, will get into a conversation where they assume that humans are in some way spiritually superior to other kinds of animals. And how does it make you feel when you hear statements like that? And it's unbelievable. People still say things like that in this day and age, but they do.
Yeah, I recognize it as really just ignorance. It's an area that they really have not examined. Now, I've been lecturing and teaching since the 1970s, and I used to go to metaphysical bookstores, and people were really astounded. They said, "You mean animals evolve? You mean they're spiritual beings?" They were like, this was like foreign to them. Only humans were considered as evolving. The rest was something else. I mean, it's a very objective view of the universe. You know, the rest is objects. We're the only ones that are conscious. We're the only ones evolving. So when I explained to them and gave them examples, and people started to wake up, they go, I just accepted the belief that animals were automatons.
Yeah.
And plants and mountains and rivers and everything they just carry on. And I laugh because you realize that most of the processes in our body are completely unconscious. They're to us as the individual who is inhabiting the body, they just carry on. But I laugh because they assign that to all the rest of the universe, but don't realize that really we're not in charge in the way we think we are. And, there's billions, trillions of beings in our body that are conscious and carrying on and cooperating with each other. If there weren't, we would not have a functioning body and we would not be able to do what we do as humans. So I just think it's really accepting the beliefs that have gone before, the Descartes beliefs of, animals don't feel anything, you can do anything you want with them, cut them open, everything's fine. Because, don't mind that they're screaming. That means nothing. It's just an automatic response. Well, they do the same with women, Black people, you name it, any other Jewish people, you name it. Whatever group was chosen as supposedly lower was then regarded as not really human. And human means real, to be respected and alive. So then they would just call them, they would say, well, they're like animals.
Right.
And you see, there it is.
Yeah.
They're like animals. What does that mean? Well, I'm very happy to be like an animal because basically in my physical form, I am, and an animal means soul, spirit, breath, air, life. There's nothing different between the spiritual quality of human animals and other animals. So I just look at it, but I woke a lot of people up. I mean, people
Mhm.
just shifted out of that old paradigm. And many people who couldn't communicate with animals, like, the shamanic people were similar. They go, well, power animals and spiritual guides. And I go, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
You're ignoring your domesticated animals, but the telepathy that you're doing with the power animals and your other spiritual guides, it's all the same. So why
Right.
don't you communicate with your animals that are right there and cultivate their wisdom? And
Mhm.
and the same thing happened with them. People went, oh my gosh, oh
Ah.
my gosh, oh my gosh, and they became animal communicators. I mean,
Mhm.
that again was in the 80s,
Yeah.
and just this constant shifting of consciousness. So it really still surprises me, since many spiritual leaders have shifted. You take
Mhm.
someone like Deepak Chopra and
Mhm.
many others who are
Mhm.
very conscious that animals are not things, that they
Yes.
are spiritual beings, that they evolve, that they cooperate, that they help each other, that they help humans. On it goes, so that many are awakened, and then many stick to these old beliefs. Oh, humans are in the image of God and nothing else is. And I go, these are all interpretations. These are all translations of texts that were written well after this person who supposedly said them said them. And and on it goes. And I go, well, just look to the being, look to the animal.
Mhm.
And if you cannot communicate with them, how can you know what's going on with them? Now,
Yes.
good observers, you people who actually observe and look, they see the reality of the spirit
Mhm.
in animals. I mean,
Mhm.
I go, I mean, my whole life I've seen the spiritual quality of animals. So I've never understood it. I said,
Yes.
you just look at them. It's real obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just look at them. They're responding. They're alive. They're emotional. They make decisions. They don't like some things. I mean, how can you not get that?
Yeah.
You don't know how many consultations I did early on. I don't think it happens so much now, but it will happen around the world for people who are pioneering in their own areas that
Mhm.
have belief systems that say animals don't think, don't decide. But how many times in consultations people would say to me, you mean he made a decision?
Hmm.
He decided that himself? You mean
Mhm.
he's thinking about his life? I go,
Yep.
yes. Yes, and
Yeah.
yes. So
Uh-huh.
they would, you could feel all the wheels turning and everything shifting inside of people. But really, what it takes, Jeannie, is people need to look without the biases, without the
Mhm.
prejudices. So if I look at you and I just go, well, this person couldn't communicate anything to me because she's just an object.
Mhm.
So I won't expect anything from her. And anything that comes out of her is just this automatic gibberish or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Then I wouldn't hear a thing that
Mhm.
you said. And
Right.
I wouldn't recognize who you are at
Mhm.
all.
Mhm.
And that's what they've done to animals, plants, rivers, mountains, all the
Yes.
things that are conscious and alive. And because the consciousness looks different, gets
Mhm.
expressed differently, this is what throws people.
Right.
They're always looking in this human mirror and they go, well, if they don't express themselves like a human, but I've watched it, for the last 50 years, I've watched it change.
Mhm.
All the things they used to think that separated humans from the rest. Tool using was a big one. Then
Right.
they found out
Right.
there's all kinds of animals who use tools. Okay, then it was this, then it was that. It was one
Right.
together that divided. And now these latest holdouts, who are spiritual leaders with lots of following, they're going, oh, well, a person who wrote to me, she was so upset about that. He said they can't make choices
Mm. Mm.
to change their actions. They are just going to act the way they're programmed. And
Wow.
I
Yeah.
go, they can't make choices?
Yeah.
I go, I go, whoa. And
Uh-huh.
he said, oh, but it's my observation and my intuition, and it's where he is at on the subject. I
Right.
mean, you can't see what you won't see.
Mhm.
If you're
Mhm.
programmed to that it's like this, it's hard to get through all that.
Sure.
That's why I tell animal communicators, you got to be an open area. Your field has to be very clear and open for you to actually perceive and then receive and translate truly without all your stuff, without all your ideas. So these people have not learned in communication with others. You have to put your ideas aside. That goes the same for human communication. Until you put your ideas aside, you don't hear the other person. You don't get the freshness of their viewpoints. You can't, because your ideas are in the way and you get just your own feedback. We humans are so good at this, doing this circular feedback of their own ideas instead of being surprised, by what they get. Like with animals, I just find that every time I communicate with them, it's always something different.
It's always a surprise.
Yeah. It's refreshing because just like you get people from other cultures, it's a very similar thing. You travel. Why is travel so eye-opening? You get other people's viewpoints that are very different than your own.
Right.
You start to see life can be lived and interpreted in a whole lot of different ways. So kind of out of our own cobwebs, our belief systems, and go, whoa, I never looked at that way. Can you imagine, as because since you're an animal communicator, but can you imagine when people start communicating with other species, you're just going to crack. You're going to go, whoa, that's a whole nother way to look at the universe. And then in the species, there's all these individuals, and they're going to have their own take on life too.
Right. Every dog you talk to is different. Every horse you talk to is different.
It's wonderful. And why I get on my soapbox on these things, because it's my mission in life. So, this is at the core of why I'm here, is to open up people to the spiritual nature of all life.
All life. Yes.
That we communicate with all life, that it's all alive and it all communicates. And we're the ones that have to wake up. We're the ones that have to become more conscious in order to do this. See, that's the turnaround. People go into this superiority thing. Well, we are the ones who are evolving. We are the only ones who can change our minds. We are the only ones who can self-reflect. We actually self-reflect a little bit too much.
Yes.
We go round and round in our own thoughts and call it self-reflection.
Yeah.
So there you go. You got me on my soapbox.
Yes.
That's why I get on my soapbox.
Well, I think the world needs a little of that soap, because sometimes when I talk with animal researchers who are doing wonderful work, it's all part of the growth. But then we'll get to the question of animal consciousness and the door slams shut. And sometimes they'll tell me, well, I think that too, but I would never say that out of public. Don't quote me. You know what I mean? Because it's still so risky for them to.
It's changed a lot. I know that it's still. People, that paradigm is so rigid, and how you are accepted as a researcher and a scientist is very rigid still. And at the same time, it's changed so much. I've watched it, over 50 years, I've watched it change, how people allow now that animals think, they make decisions, they have complex communication systems. They never would say that. They would never say that animals had feeling. Since they were looking at it, that it was all automatic, they would study deer leaping around and playing with each other. Okay, they couldn't say the word play because that was too human. That was being anthropomorphic. And finally, researchers would say, well, there's no other reason for it. I can't find any other physical evolutionary reason why they should be leaping around in this field with each other and playing and look like they're tagging, then they play. Now, it may have taken them years to come to that conclusion.
Yes. Oh, yes.
But it has changed so much. And now you get whole groups of scientifically oriented people who are scientists, who are researchers. And I had students who were biologists, other researchers who added it to their understanding, this consciousness, and then added their own field and their own scientific research, which is happening now. There's a big movement now to make it, acceptable communicate animal communication in a
Yes.
way that scientists can understand it. And also realizing, and I've been through this for so many years, they try to apply a rigid scientific method. And I go, you can't even do this with human communication. You can't apply this rigid scientific double-blind study because it's very flexible and it keeps changing. Emotions change, decisions change, thinking. You can't apply it like you can to, the speed of this or that, or, physical phenomena. It's not the same. So these wonderful people who are doing research, they're developing new models of how can we test that this is really happening, but without the model that cuts it all out.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's
amazing.
wild times we live in. I mean, it's so good to talk to you because you have seen it from the time where scientists couldn't utter the word consciousness in public to, well, they'll say, well, I don't know, but at least they'll say maybe.
Yeah.
At least there's,
or that there is a consciousness here, and they'll define it differently. I mean, there are many now spiritual leaders who also have scientific backgrounds. And they meld it together and they go, this shows consciousness.
Yes.
The fact that the animal did this and this and this shows consciousness. Now, before they wouldn't have been open to that.
Right.
No, we can't go there. We can't go there.
Yes.
But now they go, well, this shows consciousness. They're making this decision. They're changing their behavior. I mean, I go, why didn't they see that before? I mean,
right.
For me, it's been very obvious before day one. I was going to say since day one, but before day one, that we're all alive and conscious and aware beings. But again, we express ourselves differently.
Right.
This is the things that catches people.
Yes.
They get so human oriented that they go, well, the only thing that's valid is if it's expressed in a human way.
Right. Language or,
You lost it.
Yeah.
You lost it then.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a very short little break. When we come back, I want to hear some of your maybe early stories where you just had an absolute experience. This animal has emotions. This animal is making choices. This animal has consciousness. We'll hear some of your wonderful stories in just a moment. We'll be right back.
Hey friends, if you like what you're hearing and want to learn more, check out Dr. Joseph's book, The Human-Animal Connection, Deepening Relationships with Animals and Ourselves. Or visit the website, thehumananimalconnection.org, to book an online consultation. Thank you for loving animals. Now back to the show.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Human Animal Connection, where I'm speaking with Penelope Smith all about animal consciousness. Now, I know it's so real to you because you've had so many experiences of communicating with animals and seeing how they make choices, seeing how they have emotions, they have opinions, they choose play, for example, just to play, or they love just to love. It doesn't have to be anything different from what we experience. But tell us maybe some of the stories that really, for you, opened your eyes maybe earlier. I know they've been open all along, but just to help people sort of understand kind of that the steps that you came to this deep understanding.
Well, I would say, again, for me, I always understood them this way. I just looked at it, I looked at animals that they just had different costumes. They had a different body. So it's a different costume, but it's the same being. We'd communicate to each other. No problem. They understood me. I understood them. I had a lot of relationships with wild animals, my domesticated animals. I would talk to them. They would understand me. They would listen. Okay, so I'll give some examples from my work as an animal communication specialist where I was doing a lot of counseling. I started out with learning that animals responded the same way to human counseling techniques that helped people through traumas. So my first experience was how animals answered, responded. I mean, I knew they could communicate, but I went, well, okay, I've got an animal with a problem. And so why don't I just apply the same techniques that work with humans? I'll question them. I'll get them to express their emotions and help to release the trauma, and we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now there's been a gazillion examples of that. I won't give my first example because you can read Animal Talk for that. That was pretty dramatic. When I first applied counseling, the changes were enormous. But you see, this shows the consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
How can animals, if they didn't understand, if they weren't conscious, how could they respond to questions? How could they release traumas and change? Now, the thing is, as I always say to people, it's very experiential.
Yes.
It's right there. It's shown in their behavior. You don't have to go, well, how could I know you were communicating because it's all silent?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they just changed right in front of you. So I'll give you an example. This is one of my favorite ones. I'll never forget this one. This woman called me because she was concerned about her cat, who no longer was affectionate with her. In fact, every time she came in the door, the cat jumped onto the refrigerator and wouldn't come down until she went away. Now, this was opposite to the relationship that they had before. We were affectionate, the usual, loving and playing with each other. And so she was very concerned. And so this one was done in person. In the early days, I did a lot of communications in person. And so I knew nothing about the woman. I knew nothing about her life. I knew nothing about her cat. I went in there, I sat down, and sure enough, the cat was on the refrigerator, on the top of the refrigerator. So I began to communicate with the cat and asked her, so what's the scoop? What's going on? Why do you jump up to the refrigerator when your person comes in? What's happened? So she explained to me. She said, my person has stopped going to her meditation classes. I came here to help her to evolve spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very happy when she was going to her meditation classes. I could see the changes. And in fact, we loved meditating together. Yes. Okay, but then she stopped going, and she's been very anxious, and she wants to be close to me, but I won't be close to her until she does what she's meant to do on her spiritual path, because that's what I'm here for. So because the person wasn't listening to her, the cat just said, I'm going to sit up here on the refrigerator till you get it.
Yeah.
So the woman said to me, well, yeah, I stopped going. I mean, I didn't know anything about this woman going to meditation classes. She said, yeah, I stopped because I started working overtime. And then when the overtime, and we made more money. And then when the overtime ended, my boss said, well, we have an opportunity if you want to keep on. We have lots of work. She continued because she wanted to make more money, but that meant no more time for meditation classes. So she was working, making a lot of money, and her cat noticed this.
Yeah.
And noticed that she also was getting less aware, less evolved. She was going down the tubes, according to the cat. And so the woman said, yeah, I just got into the money thing. I just really got to be a really wow thing for me to have more money. And I realized that, I was definitely getting more anxious, and my life was getting more frazzled. And I said, well, if you want your cat to respond well to you, then you're going to have to go back to your meditation classes and take your, your money motivation out the door, And she said, I didn't quite say it like that, but, that was kind of the cat's viewpoint.
Right.
And she said, yeah, I really realized that. And, I knew my cat understood me. I knew my cat was taking care of me. I didn't realize that she had, as you said, come here as a guide for me. And now it makes total sense. She said, yeah, I will go back. And as soon as she said that, the cat jumped down from the refrigerator, came over to me first, thanked me, purred on my lap, and then went over to the person. And, there it is. They demonstrate their consciousness. Of course, the person went back to her meditation classes. They had a happy relationship again. How could you explain this otherwise than that the cat understood that the cat has a higher consciousness
Mm-hmm.
In fact, in this way, was more spiritually aware than her person.
Mm-hmm.
She knew what was important in life.
Right.
She knew what was important. And she was taking care of her person.
Yes.
You see, these are things that these spiritual leaders and other people don't have any concept of. And I can demonstrate it over and over and over again, how animals show this consciousness.
I have a question for you. Do some people say that that people and animals can reincarnate back and forth? What has been your experience? Have some of the
Yes,
animals that
yes,
you've met been people before and then
yes,
chosen to be an animal? Can you
definitely.
maybe tell us a story about
And
that?
vice versa. You know, I've
Yeah.
had experiences in other animal forms that I totally enjoyed. And then they helped me in my life because I also remembered my past lives, unlike most humans. So plus part of my counseling training was past life regression.
Ah.
So, you know, it raised my consciousness on the whole thing. But what I've found is that beings go from life to life according to their journeys, according to, well, what will best evolve them? What pieces of the puzzle are they missing to come back to oneness and wholeness, to be in union with the total divine, which is in and around all of us? So what is missing? So you'll take some humans who will just say, you know what? I need to learn how to really love. And to love without any object, without any reason. I'm going to be a dog.
Yeah.
And so they'll spend a lifetime as a dog and they'll really feel it in their whole being. They'll go, I get what pure devotion is.
Yeah.
I get what pure union is. I get it on a whole nother level. So then they go back, then the next lifetime, they go back to being human and apply what they learned. So they're more generous, they're more loving, they may work with animals or they may work with other humans, helping to care for them, helping homeless people, whatever it is. But the point is, we go according to what is our evolution, what is helpful. See, it's not this, again, there's this old style thinking that, okay, since animals are lower, well, if you're bad this lifetime, you've done evil things, you're going to be microbe or you're going to be a frog or whatever. What does that mean? I mean, that makes me sick to even think of that, because microbes and frogs have incredible consciousness, incredible awareness about who they are in the web of life, and also their awareness of themselves as spiritual beings living a different experience, living as a frog, living as a microbe, living as a human, which many humans do not have.
Yes.
See, the mind thing of humans, while we have definitely incredible powers of creativity with our minds, we also have a trap here. The trap is to go into this kind of analysis where we do separate ourselves from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And think that we're superior instead of seeing that it's all one interconnected life.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you a big question, which is, you know, in general, like with all your years of communicating with animals and plants and rivers and trees and birds and everybody, what is your sense of how they see us as humans? How do they see us?
They're very benevolent. You know, what I would say, and what I would say, the biggest lesson that I learned from communicating with animals over all kinds of species, including what people consider inanimate, you know, which is, there's nothing that is inanimate, it's all alive. But anyway, all this experience, you know what I found? Incredible compassion. They understand that humans have it very hard, that humans are pretty unconscious for the most part. You know, not all humans, and obviously the many humans that are very conscious and do incredible, beautiful things on this earth. But animals look at humans and they go, a lot of humans, and they go, wow, you got to stay away from them, because boy, they are so unconscious, they'll kill you. Or they'll kill each other, or they'll kill themselves, you know? So there's a caution, let's say among wild animals, obviously a good caution. There's also a compassion. So when you do connect, when you can reach out, or even when you need help, How many stories are there, documented stories of animals who supposedly can eat and hurt humans, take in human babies who are lost, you know, and these are documented stories. I mean, or take care of them or lead people to them to save a child who's injured. I mean, there's all kinds of, again, documented stories. So I just go, animals have, again, a reasonable fear. You got to be afraid of what can hurt you. And they also have tremendous compassion, whether they're domesticated animals who know us so closely and have even more compassion. They go, oh my gosh, humans are so mixed up. They get so lost, you know, just like that cat sitting on the refrigerator going, oh my God, she's up in her head and her anxiety. She's all in her fear. She doesn't ever come into the present moment like she did when she was meditating.
Yes.
You know, I mean, they sit and they look at us and they go, wow. Wow. And so there's tremendous compassion because they have tremendous love.
Yeah.
You know, so they go, wow, I'm going to help my person. I'm going to help her to wake up, but I'm also going to help her through the challenge of being human. I mean, the human condition is a very challenging condition. It's full of contradictions. I would say that animals don't generally have, of course, domesticated animals take on a lot of things that are part of the human condition, but most animals do not have all these contradictions. Yes. It's pretty straightforward. You know, I'm on my mission. I do this part in the web of life. I also have my individual mission as a spirit to grow in a certain way in this lifetime. So I'm going to attract certain experiences. You know, I'm going to relate to humans while my other beings of my kind don't want to relate to humans. I do, you know, and so you get animals, wild animals who are emissaries, you know, who just reach out. They come up on your doorstep. You know, and other animals are going, why are you doing that? Right. You know, whoa, you know. So a tremendous understanding among animals about humans. They get it. They look at you. I mean, look back at them. They're assessing you. You know, that rat you think is a lower being. He's got you completely your number there. Talk about, you know, if you want to talk about who's closest to humans, look at these guys who assess all the time. They have to live close to humans, so they have to assess mental things. Yes. You know, the raccoons, the rats, the microbes who are constantly trying to survive and assess what humans are doing. I mean, this is quite an amazing thing. So you look at them and you see their consciousness, you see their awareness, you see how they're making decisions. Just look at them. Yeah. Beautiful. I mean, wow. And that they choose to relate to us, to me, is always a privilege, wild animals. I mean, to me, it's always this incredible privilege because most humans are dangerous. Yes, yes, indeed. So that they relate to us, that they look at you, and the animals in my area, they look at me and they go, oh, it's her. You know, I don't have to worry. That's Penelope. Don't have to worry, you know. That's so nice. Well, before we leave, maybe if you could just for people who are just starting on their journey of opening their hearts and their minds to animal communication, what's one piece of advice for the beginner's mind, for the beginner? Yeah, it's just spend time out in nature. Spend time just being quiet out in nature and observing. Open yourself up to observation. Obviously, nature, being out in nature, we get calmer. All these studies show that, you know, but just walk on a path wherever you are, whether you're in a city or whatever. Walk on a path where there are trees, where there are birds. Sit and just be aware. Practice just coming back down to earth, out of the head, back down to earth, and look around you. Yes. And your awareness will start to open to the consciousness of other beings. Be open to the idea that they're conscious living beings and see what happens. Great. Beautiful advice. Beautiful advice. Well, Penelope Smith, author of Animal Talk and Animal Spirit, it's been just so wonderful to have you on the show. I know we're just skimming the surface. There's so much we could talk about for many, many episodes, but thank you for being here. And thank you for the great work that you've done and that you are doing and that you will do. You've done so much to open the path for others. Thank you, Jeannie.
All right. We'll see you again. I'm Genie Joseph, and you've been listening to The Human Animal Connection. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning into the Human Animal Connection Show. Please visit our website, thehumananimalconnection.org. There you can sign up for our free email newsletter, book a consultation, or check out our blogs and resources. Our best-selling book, The Human Animal Connection, is available on Amazon, and your donation of any amount keeps our nonprofit organization providing life-changing services.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.